So in our last video, we learned about the CSS display property. So in this video, we are going to start learning about the CSS Flex. So we have the flex. In our last video, we learned about the display. We have flex, we have grid, we have none, we have block inline, for instance. So in this video, we are going to learn about the flex property under the display. Let's go back to our work. Now, for instance, now the logo and the navigation, want them to be appearing on a single row. So we're going to change the display of the header. The header, when you look at our source code, from our source code inside our index.html, so you see the header. So we're going to create a div which is going to house the header and the navigation bar. So let's create a div quickly here. Okay. So let's create a div here. So let's say div, for instance. Let's create a div. Then we're going to nest the header and the navigation inside. So let's take them back like this. Okay. So this particular div, we're going to give it an ID attribute. We have learned about the ID and the class attribute, so you can refer to the previous video if you didn't understand the ID and the class attribute. So we are going to give it a value of header section. Okay. So now we're going to use in our, so let's save it. So let's go back to the browser and refresh and see. So now let's go back to our CSS. Inside our CSS, we're going to target the header section using the ID selector, and we're going to turn the display to flex. So let's see how we're going to achieve that. Like that. So this is the value header section. So in our style.css, so we'll say # then header section. Okay. So now let's say display to flex. So let's save it, Ctrl S. So let's go back to the browser and refresh and see. So you see now they are on the straight line, for instance. Now after the flex, now there is some properties that you can assign to a flex container. We have the flex direction, the flex wrap, we have the flex flow, we have the justify content, we have the align items, we have the align content. So we're going to look at the justify content and the align items in this video. So now let's say, for instance, now we want maybe these items maybe to start towards the end of the page of the row, for instance. So we can justify the content maybe to flex end, for instance. By default it's flex start, or maybe you can say to be space around or space between, where you can set them to be at the center, for instance. Maybe if you want to center a div, for instance, so you can use the flex property, then you will give it justify content and maybe say center, for instance. Okay, so now let's use the justify content. Okay, so now after the display, let's say justify content. Okay, so in this case we're going to use the space between. So let's save it. So let's back to the browser and refresh. You see we have this. So now they are spaced. Okay, so now let's say, for instance, let's try the let's say flex end. So just to see it. So you see all the items are aligned to the end of the page, for instance. Okay, so let's use let's say, for instance, let's say center. Let's say center. Let's save it. So by default, you see they are on the center of the page. Depending on what you want to achieve, But for the meantime, now we want the display to be space between. Okay, so now you look at the logo and the navigations. So let's align the items so that they'll be on a straight line at the center. So we are going to use a property called align items, and let's say put it to center. Okay. So we have something like this. Okay, so you see now the logo and the navigation, they are aligned at the center. So in the next video, we're going to learn about the CSS list. We're going to look at the list style type to remove this bullet styling, to continue styling the navigation.